Hi, I'm Mohsen, and I'm so excited to welcome you to The Seeking Soul. This podcast is a space where we explore topics like philosophy, spirituality, and literature, often from perspectives you may not have encountered before. As someone who grew up traveling, I've had the privilege of witnessing the deep similarities between cultures and people, even when mainstream narratives focus on what divides us. As an Iranian American, I've always felt to share the beauty, wisdom, and lessons from my Eastern heritage with my Western community, and vice versa. My hope is to be a bridge between these two worlds, fostering the sense of oneness and unity. With the help of AI, this dream feels more achievable than ever. Using documents and notes, I've provided with the link of the sources in the description. Along the way, you might encounter ideas that feel new, challenging, or even uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's the purpose of this space, to listen with empathy and approach every perspective with love and curiosity. Welcome to the Seeking Soul.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today, we're in for a treat.
Oh, I agree.
We're diving into the unexpected connections between Persian and English literature.
Really fascinating stuff. Two different literary traditions, but,
Right.
maybe they're more similar than we think.
Like two glasses filled with the same, intoxicating wine.
That's a great analogy, each with its own distinct flavor, of course.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive, some insightful lectures on the topic, so get ready to be surprised.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're going to uncover how both traditions, Persian and English, use the idea of wine to talk about spiritual experiences. We'll even find some surprising examples from famous English authors you might know. The speaker started by talking about how people approach literature, especially those mystical or spiritual texts, which really got me thinking.
I see where you're going with this. It's like, are we all even tasting the same wine, so to speak?
Exactly.
He pointed out 3 different approaches. Some folks get lost in the beauty of the language. Then there are those who like the ideas but don't necessarily put them into practice in their lives. And finally, there are those who actually try to embody the teachings.
I thought that was fascinating. It's like someone admiring a beautifully crafted wine glass, but never actually taking a sip of the wine itself.
I love that.
How about you? Which approach resonates most with you?
I think I lean towards understanding the ideas and how they fit into, a bigger philosophical picture. But I have to admit, sometimes the beauty of the language alone, it's just captivating.
I hear you.
It really can be intoxicating.
The speaker then talked about literature being a divine gift, like manna from heaven, a heavenly repast, really powerful imagery.
Food for our souls.
Yes, it takes literature beyond just, entertainment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like viewing literature as essential spiritual nourishment.
And this idea, it's reflected in all the different ways literature has been defined throughout history, right?
Right. Refining our morals, preparing us for the afterlife, even acting as a bridge between worlds.
Wow. So multifaceted. But how do writers actually create these divine gifts, these works that nourish us so deeply?
He used the idea of alchemy, like how artists, Shakespeare, for example,
Yeah.
transformed existing stories like those from Plutarch into something entirely new.
Oh, that's a fantastic analogy. It's like turning lead into gold.
Exact. And he talked about the Persian poet Rudaki, too.
Oh, yeah.
His poetry actually convinced an emir to return home from his wanderings, the power of words to shape reality.
That's incredible, the power these writers wield. Speaking of power, the speaker then shifted gears a bit, started talking about nature as a teacher, focusing on the symbolism of the rainbow.
Ah, yes. He mentioned Wordsworth's observation about how the rainbow's essence remains the same throughout our lives, a symbol of purity, constancy, unchanging spiritual truths.
It's so true. The rainbow, this vibrant symbol of hope, it stays with us even as we change and grow.
Yeah.
And it's not just about beauty and constancy, right? He connected the rainbow to the idea of victory as well.
Right. He tied it to the Quranic Surah An-Nasr, highlighting how divine help arrives when we persevere through hardship. It's a message that, really resonates, especially when facing challenges. Even the prophets struggled, so it's comforting to know that doubt is part of the human experience.
Absolutely. But then he really threw me for a loop. He challenged the traditional idea of sin.
Ah, how so?
He wasn't talking about breaking rules. He was suggesting that sometimes our very existence can feel inadequate. almost like a form of sin.
That's thought-provoking, that feeling of not being enough, you know?
Exactly.
He quoted a line, something about the garden of existence and how our being can feel humbled by its limitations.
It's like a yearning for something more, a recognition of our inherent incompleteness. Really insightful. It makes me think about how both Persian and English literature wrestle with this idea of searching for fulfillment, that longing for something beyond the everyday. And then he went on to talk about love as a tool for spiritual ascent. I was hooked.
Yeah. He used this amazing metaphor, God as a carpenter building a ladder to heaven, and love.
Yeah, love is
The carpentry of imagination, helping us climb toward the divine.
Okay, that is one of the most beautiful metaphors I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Love as a ladder to heaven. It changes how you think about love, going beyond just romantic love.
It speaks to that deep human desire for connection, something greater than ourselves.
Absolutely. And he also talked about how even seemingly ordinary things can hold special meaning, right?
Right, because of their association with someone or something we love.
He gave the example of a poet kissing the walls of his beloved's house. Not because he loved the house itself, but because of his love for the person who lived there.
It's a good reminder that significance often comes from our emotional connections. Think about a family heirloom.
Right. Or a childhood toy. It's not the object itself, but the memories, the emotions we've woven into it.
Exactly. Those objects, they become infused with the essence of our love.
And then he took that idea even further, discussing the concept of dying while thinking of your beloved. He even said, quote, "Whoever dies in the presence of the image of their friend dies in paradise."
Wow, that's powerful. Really highlights the profound impact love can have, even in our final moments. If our hearts are full of love, even the transition into the afterlife can be peaceful.
Definitely see how that could offer comfort.
Yeah.
It also points to this universal theme of love transcending boundaries, something we see in both Persian and English literature.
Absolutely. And just when I thought it couldn't get more intriguing, he brought up this idea of caravans as a metaphor.
Caravans.
Yeah, for how divine truths are hidden from those who are ugly or unjust.
Ugly people. Caravans. I'll admit I was a bit confused at first.
He was describing caravans bringing valuable goods to those who deserve them, suggesting that divine insights, truths, are revealed to those who've cultivated inner beauty and righteousness.
Okay, I'm starting to see it now.
He even connected it to a Quranic verse, equating ugliness with oppression.
So it's a challenging concept. Makes you think about the relationship between our inner character and our external experiences.
Yes, exactly. What does inner beauty really mean in this context? It's about, I believe, aligning our actions with a higher moral code, embodying justice, compassion, and righteousness.
Right. And then he transitioned into a discussion about justice, its connection to inner peace and protection.
He argued that a person who embodies justice is inherently protected, while those consumed by injustice are constantly vulnerable. He even quoted Shakespeare, saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, that someone who is just in their words and deeds is in a fortress of security, even without armor.
Wow. But someone whose heart is corrupted by oppression, they're left naked and vulnerable. Such a striking image. It really underscores how true strength comes from within, from aligning ourselves with goodness and justice.
It's a reminder that our internal state really influences our external experiences.
Right. If we cultivate justice within ourselves, we create a kind of spiritual armor. And the opposite is true as well, right?
Absolutely. Allowing injustice to fester, it leaves us vulnerable.
It's amazing how this ties back to that concept of inner beauty we were talking about.
It all connects. And he used this funny analogy, a donkey failing to recognize itself in a mirror,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
to show how we often miss the connection between our choices and their outcomes.
We fail to see how our actions directly shape our experiences.
Precisely.
I love how he uses humor to make such a profound point.
He's good at that.
So it's not just about physical beauty, it's about reflecting divine attributes in our actions.
Yes, exactly.
And he shared this beautiful quote, "Everyone who has fallen from the compass of the divine is like us, seeking,
We're all on this journey searching for connection and meaning.
and true beauty lies in that pursuit." Powerful reminder that we're all connected in this search for meaning. And speaking of seeking, he then shifted to the idea of art being a manifestation of another realm.
I love this part.
Captured my imagination too. He quoted Victor Hugo, "I have seen with my own eyes that moments from the lives of angels are separated from the life of angels and connected to the lives of humans." He interpreted this to mean that art is born when these angelic moments touch human lives.
It's a beautiful thought.
Art becomes a bridge between the human and the divine. bringing a touch of heaven to earth.
But he also acknowledges the shadows that exist when we disconnect from the divine.
He quoted Shelley, "This is why shadows grip in the middle if the light doesn't shine." And he used the metaphor of rain, saying that the occasional downpours from the realm of the divine are what keep the world from drying up and becoming barren.
Like we need constant nourishment from the source of goodness and truth.
Without it, we risk being consumed by darkness. And that's where prophets and teachers come in.
They play a crucial role.
He emphasized their importance as guides, illuminating the path towards goodness and justice. He asked, what have the prophets done in this world?
What do you think he meant by that?
I think he was highlighting their role in planting the seeds of faith, reminding us of a higher power, a purpose to our lives.
Like beacons of light.
Showing us the way back to the source of truth. And then, this is where it got really interesting for me. He touched on this idea that some truths are beyond words, can only be experienced directly.
The mystical realm.
He quoted a line of mystical poetry, "The unseen within the seen arrives."
Where language falls short and direct experience becomes the only way to truly know.
It makes you realize the limitations of language, the importance of seeking direct experience. But he didn't leave us hanging in that abstract realm. He brought it back down to earth, emphasizing the importance of not just possessing knowledge, but putting it into action.
Walking the talk.
He shared a story about a companion who knew humanity as intimately as the difference between barley and wheat. This wasn't just theoretical knowledge, it was lived experience. Powerful reminder that true understanding isn't passive. It's about letting our actions reflect the wisdom we've gained. And this leads us to English literature, which the speaker invited us to experience as a different glass of wine.
Tonight, let's become drunk with the wine of English literature.
Beautiful metaphor. He emphasized that even those who haven't tasted the true wine of spiritual insight can still be intoxicated by the beauty and depth of English literature.
It's an invitation to savor the richness of both traditions.
Seeing them as complementary, not contradictory. And he pointed out that English literature, like Persian mystical poetry, explores both the spiritual and the earthly wine of experience.
Both sides of the coin.
He even used Shakespeare's Othello as an example, highlighting the play's exploration of jealousy, the destructive power of unchecked passions.
Even intellectual pursuits don't always lead to true fulfillment. Something anyone who's ever chased knowledge or success without finding lasting happiness can relate to.
It's a reminder that true satisfaction comes from aligning ourselves with something greater than ourselves, seeking a connection that transcends the material world. And this brought us to the nature of true art,
where he argued that it goes beyond simple entertainment.
He used the example of the mutterib, the musician who must convey the story of the beloved in a way that evokes genuine emotion, spiritual longing.
Art as a conduit for deeper truths.
He quoted a line, "That musician, from where is he, that upon the mention of the name of the friend, I may offer my glass, my soul, and my cloak."
It's about the power of art to transport us, connect us with something beyond ourselves.
To evoke those profound emotions that words alone often can't capture.
Art can offer a taste of that wine of spiritual insight, that transcendent experience.
And he made it clear, this intoxication isn't confined to any one culture or tradition. It's universal, found throughout history, across the globe.
It's a shared language of the soul.
A yearning for connection, something greater than ourselves. And it transcends cultural boundaries. And this led him to trace the historical development of English literature, taking us all the way back to the epic poem Beowulf.
Back to the roots.
What I found fascinating was his mention of the linguistic connections between English and Persian.
Oh, yes. He pointed out the use of alliteration in Beowulf, which is similar to techniques used by the Persian poet Ferdowsi in his epic Shahnameh.
Two traditions, geographically distant yet sharing common roots.
And from there, he took us on a whirlwind tour, starting with Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, a window into 14th century English society.
With its diverse characters and captivating stories. I love the frame narrative structure. A group of pilgrims traveling to Canterbury, each telling a story, like a literary tapestry.
He focused on two tales in particular, the Pardoner's Tale, a cautionary tale about greed, and the Wife of Bath's Tale, exploring love, marriage, and the power dynamics between men and women.
And then he made this really interesting point about the often underestimated strength of women.
Oh, yes.
He said they possess this hidden strength that emerges in times of need, connecting it to the concept of resilience.
He compared women to vines that wrap themselves around a sturdy tree for support.
But if that tree falls,
The vine reveals its true strength by holding everything together.
powerful image, challenging those traditional notions of feminine weakness.
A deeper strength lies beneath the surface.
And from there, we arrived at the Elizabethan era, a time of great cultural flourishing with figures like Sir Walter Raleigh and Edmund Spenser.
A fascinating period, both prosperity and hardship.
What stood out to you from that era?
Well, Sir Walter Raleigh, of course, such a fascinating figure, but I was particularly drawn to the discussion of Edmund Spenser and his epic poem, The Faerie Queene.
He described it as so rich and evocative, it could lull you into a peaceful sleep.
He even quoted a critic who said that falling asleep while reading it is a sign of peace and security.
That's a new one.
It speaks to the power of literature to create spaces of tranquility amidst life's chaos.
And from peaceful slumber, we move into the enchanting world of fairies.
Another realm altogether.
I love how he connected the realm of fairies with the divine. He shared a quote, something about a fairy preventing the speaker's soul from being taken away.
A force of beauty and wonder, keeping our souls from getting bogged down, reminding us to nurture that sense of wonder, especially in a world that can feel so focused on the practical.
And from the enchanting realm of fairies, we transition to the tragic brilliance of Christopher Marlowe.
A stark shift in tone.
He highlighted Marlowe's poem, addressed to a sea nymph, evoking the allure of beauty and pleasure.
But the sea nymph's response.
A sobering reminder of how fleeting those earthly delights can be. Her reply, if all the world were spring, and youth on every shepherd's tongue, then in the dale the nymph would sing. But what man will constant be?
It highlights the need to seek something more enduring, something that goes beyond fleeting pleasure.
And that leads us to Marlowe's most famous play, Dr. Faustus, right? A cautionary tale about the dangers of seeking knowledge and power through unholy means.
A classic story, found in both Christian and Islamic traditions. The temptation to make a deal with the devil.
What are your thoughts on this universal theme?
It's a reminder of the consequences of choosing shortcuts. True power comes from aligning ourselves with the divine, not from bargains with forces that lead to ruin. The speaker then took us through the play's tragic climax.
Where Faustus realizes his mistake, faces his fate. He begs for more time to repent, but it's too late. His bargain with the devil sealed his doom.
A chilling reminder to make wise choices.
To consider the long-term consequences of our actions. It's a theme that echoes throughout both Persian and English literature. The struggle between our higher and lower selves, the temptations of power, the consequences of our choices. And from this cautionary tale, we arrive at the pinnacle of English literary genius, William Shakespeare. What an incredible journey through these interwoven threads of Persian and English literature.
It's truly remarkable how these seemingly distinct traditions offer such profound insights into the human experience.
And speaking of Shakespeare, I'm eager to dive deeper into his world and see what treasures we uncover.
As am I. So Shakespeare, the speaker presented him in a really interesting way, not as some, boastful artist, but one whose work just speaks for itself, draws you into those profound experiences. Timeless, really. Universal.
I love that. It's like he's saying Shakespeare wasn't trying to, impress us with how clever he was.
Exact.
He wanted to use his art to connect with something much deeper within us.
He even compared Shakespeare's work to a universal mirror.
Oh, interesting.
Reflecting the full spectrum of human experience, Everyone can see their own reflection and correct their flaws.
Such a powerful image. It's like Shakespeare isn't just telling stories. He's holding up a mirror to our souls, making us confront the good, the bad, and everything in between. And he does this through both his tragedies and comedies, right?
Right. And he talked about how the tragedies, they're not meant to make us wallow in sadness.
Right.
They're there to help us process grief, to find catharsis.
It's like those intense emotional experiences, the moments of deep sorrow, they can actually be purifying, cleansing in a way.
He connected it to the idea of fire and water being necessary for repentance.
Oh, interesting.
Suggesting that tears shed during a tragedy, it's a form of cleansing.
Washing away negative emotions. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that.
He even quoted Malarana, "Unless there is the laughter of lightning, O sun, unless there is the crying of clouds, O sun, how will the grass of joy and growth sprout?"
That's beautiful, a perfect analogy. Just like rain and sunshine are both essential for growth in nature, you need both joy and sorrow for our own personal growth.
Exactly.
And just as tragedy offers catharsis, Shakespeare's comedies, they bring a message of hope, right? The ultimate triumph of good over evil.
He highlighted the importance of holding on to your beliefs, even when facing opposition, a message that resonates especially in times when it feels like negativity and injustice are winning.
It's like Shakespeare is reminding us that there's always hope. Light will eventually overcome darkness. And it's a message we see in Persian literature as well. Think about the stories of heroes and prophets, facing incredible challenges, but ultimately prevailing through faith and perseverance.
That's a great point. It's a universal theme. And speaking of connections, he then shifted to the idea of personal responsibility, the consequences of our actions.
Karma.
In a way, yes. He was explaining how the world reacts to our choices. Our actions have ripple effects. We reap what we sow.
I remember he used that analogy of the donkey failing to recognize itself in a mirror,
Oh, it's so funny, but also thought-provoking.
illustrating how we often miss the link between our choices and the outcomes we experience.
Right. We can act in ways that are harmful, even self-destructive, but we don't see how those actions are actually contributing to our own suffering.
It's a blind spot for many of us.
Sobering thought. A reminder to be mindful of our choices, to think about how they impact not just ourselves, but the world around us. And this emphasis on personal responsibility, we see this in both Persian and English literature, don't we?
Absolutely. A central theme in so many moral and philosophical works from both traditions.
He then compared Shakespeare's realistic portrayal of human nature to that of naturalist writers, like Emile Zola. What was the point he was making there?
He was highlighting how Shakespeare, while often labeled as a playwright,
Right.
actually went beyond any specific genre. He captured the full spectrum of human experience, the joy, the despair, the love, the loss, the triumph, the tragedy. He argued that Shakespeare's work goes beyond just telling stories. It delves into the core of what it means to be human. He wasn't just interested in entertaining us. He wanted to make us think about what motivates us, what drives our desires, to really explore those deeper parts of ourselves. And it's fascinating how this focus on the complexities of human nature is something we see reflected in Persian literature as well. The poets, the philosophers, they are also grappling with these universal questions.
Absolutely. The nature of good and evil, the struggle between reason and passion, the search for meaning in a world that can often feel chaotic, it's all there.
And then he brought it all back to that idea of personal responsibility. He used the image of Christ carrying his cross as a symbol of accepting the consequences of our actions.
Powerful image.
We all have our burdens to bear. We can't shy away from those tough choices we have to make.
And he reminded us that true understanding, it's not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about putting that knowledge into action. He quoted, "He who knows not how to apply the wisdom of great poets to his own life is no wiser than a donkey laden with books."
He's got a way with words. I love how he uses humor to drive home those important points. Knowledge without action, it's like a seed that never gets planted.
Exactly. It has the potential to grow into something beautiful, but it needs to be nurtured, put to use.
And then he shared some of Shakespeare's most insightful quotes. "Rumor is a pipe blown by the breath of men. This mortal coil, the sceptred isle, each one so packed with meaning."
His words have this incredible power, don't they, to move us, challenge us, inspire us. And they still resonate centuries later because they speak to those timeless truths about the human condition.
And then he mentioned the Dark Lady of Shakespeare's sonnets, suggesting that while some of those poems might seem like they're just about a love affair, many of them have hidden meanings, symbolism that goes beyond a literal interpretation.
Inviting us to read between the lines, to dig deeper and uncover those hidden layers of meaning.
To find the deeper truths embedded within those beautiful words.
And he concluded by describing Shakespeare as a heavenly messenger whose works continue to illuminate the path towards wisdom, beauty, and truth. What a fitting tribute to one of the greatest literary minds of all time.
And what's interesting is how that description of Shakespeare, it echoes the reverence that many Persian poets like Rumi or Hafiz are held in. Their words are seen as more than just poetry. They're pathways to spiritual enlightenment.
You're right. There's this shared sense of awe and wonder surrounding these figures, both in the East and the West. They're seen as guides, teachers, even prophets.
It really makes you appreciate the transformative power of literature, how it can open our minds, touch our hearts, inspire us to live more meaningful lives. And it's incredible to see how both Persian and English literature, despite their different cultural contexts, share this ability to connect us with something larger than ourselves.
It's a reminder that despite our differences, we share a common humanity, a yearning for beauty, truth, connection. And these great works, they serve as bridges, helping us to recognize and celebrate that shared humanity.
I'm still curious about the wine metaphor. We touched on it earlier,
Mhm.
but I'd love to delve a bit deeper.
I agree. It's worth exploring those nuances, how it's used differently in each tradition.
What do you think? Ready for second glass? You know, I'm really glad we're circling back to this.
Yeah.
That wine metaphor is so central to both traditions.
It is.
But I feel like, I don't know, we've only just scratched the surface of how it's used
You're right.
in each tradition.
Yeah, it's definitely a nuance worth exploring further.
Yeah.
In Persian mystical poetry, especially the Sufi poets like Rumi, the wine, it often represents this ecstatic union with the divine, dissolving those boundaries between the self and the beloved.
So it's about like losing yourself in the love of the divine.
Exactly. Experiencing this oneness, it transcends language and reason.
Complete immersion in something bigger than yourself.
It's about transcending the ego, the limitations of the self, and merging with the source of all being. And this experience, it's described in such, sensual and passionate terms, using the imagery of intoxication, drunkenness, even madness, to really convey the intensity of it all.
It's interesting how that contrasts with how wine is used in English literature.
Right.
It seems like it's often associated with the intoxication of beauty or knowledge, even creative inspiration.
You're right. Think about Shakespeare's sonnets, for example.
Yeah.
The speaker is often, drunk on the beauty of the beloved, lost in that rapture of love and desire.
Or the romantic poets like Keats and Shelley. They were intoxicated by the beauty of nature,
Right.
finding inspiration in the natural world.
Exactly. So both traditions, they use wine to talk about transcendence, but the object of that transcendence,
Might be different.
it is. In Persian mysticism, it's often about that direct union with the divine,
Yeah.
while in English literature, it could be through beauty, knowledge, or art.
Two different paths leading to the same mountaintop.
I like that.
And it makes me think about how the speaker described Shakespeare as heavenly messenger, offering us a glimpse into that realm of beauty and truth,
Right.
even if we haven't directly experienced the divine.
It's like we can still get a taste of that wine of spiritual insight through those great works of art.
And that brings us back to his emphasis on action, too.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just admire the beauty of those works, or just intellectually grasp the concepts. We have to embody that wisdom and let it shape our lives.
He really drove that point home.
He did, remember. He who knows not how to apply the wisdom of great poets to his own life is no wiser than a donkey laden with books.
It's such a funny image.
It is.
But so true. What good is all this knowledge if we don't actually put it into practice?
Right.
And the speaker ended the lecture with that thought-provoking question. Oh, my idol, where are you walking?
It makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
What idols are we chasing? Are they really leading us towards true fulfillment?
He followed it up with, just wait a moment until your true lover comes. Do not turn your face. There's something out there searching for us.
We just have to be open to it.
Exactly. Stay open, trust the journey, and have faith that you'll find what you're seeking.
Such a beautiful message of hope. And it fits so well with that wine metaphor. Whether it's the ecstatic union with the divine in Sufi poetry, or the intoxication of beauty and truth in English literature, it's all about yearning for something more.
That desire to transcend the ordinary and experience something truly extraordinary.
And it's a journey we're all on, together.
Persian and English literature, they offer us those maps and guides along the way.
Reminding us that we're not alone.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this whole exploration so rewarding. It's not just about learning. It's about connecting with something deeper within ourselves and with each other.
Recognizing that shared humanity that binds us all together.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's remember, this isn't the end.
Oh, no.
The exploration, the journey, it continues.
There are countless more glasses of wine to be tasted.
Countless more insights to be gained. Countless more connections to be made.
And on that note, cheers.
Cheers. A huge thank you to you for sharing your insights and guiding us through this incredible world of Persian and English literature.
My pleasure. And to all our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop seeking those drops of wisdom that make life so rich and rewarding.
And until next time, keep diving deep.